Good day everyone. In this video, we'll discover and learn how to solve for arguments that focusing on SDGs or known as Sustainable Development Goals. So before we start, allow me to introduce ourselves. I am Aljem Casalio and with my partner Jasper Amarante from BSED Mathematics 2A. Before we proceed, please take a screenshot for our rules of inference that will serve as your reference later. We have three SDG arguments that we will explore, and that would be SDG number 1, no poverty, SDG number 8, decent work and economic growth, and finally, SDG number 13, climate action. So let's proceed for SDG number 1, which is no poverty. So for the first one, we have an argument: if poverty is not a common issue in our country, and we work hard to earn and provide for our needs, then we will not suffer. So before we proceed, let's identify first our propositions in our argument. So for letter P, we have poverty is not a common issue in our country. And then we have letter W, we work hard to earn and provide for our needs. And lastly, we have S, we will not suffer. And we have given, for number 1, we have P and W implies to S, number 2, W, number 3, P, and what needs to prove is S. So what can we observe about the given? What do you think we can use based on the rules of inference tip? So as we notice, for 2 and 3, we can combine both of them using what rule? 3, 2, 1. Yes, you got it right. It is conjunction. We can use conjunction because both of them are true. So let's put our answer. So let's proceed for the next step. What can we observe based on the given since we have conjunction? What rules of inference we can apply? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, we can use modus ponens in this situation. As we notice in the modus ponens rule, we have P implies to Q, P therefore Q. So we can apply it in number 1 and 4. So our conclusion is S. So let's write our answer. So our argument is proved. It is concluded that we will not suffer if poverty is not a common issue in our country, and if we work hard to provide for our daily needs. So let's move on for the next slide.
And now, let's move on to the second argument. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Jasper Amarante, and I will be discussing the next argument. The second argument will be SDG 8, also known as decent work and economic growth. For the argument, if there are more decent jobs in our country, or no one is paid below the minimum wage, then we will have a decent living. The first proposition in this argument is, there are more decent jobs in our country, or J. The second one is, there is no paid below the minimum wage, or W. And the last proposition is, we will have a decent living, or S. The logical given form is first, if either J or W is true, then S is true. The second one is J, and the third one is W. Now, the witness we need to prove is S. For proving, we'll use the rules of inference. And now, what we will do first is to understand the conditionals. In the first logical form, as long as one of the condition is true, then the result will also be true. Now, we can use the inference of addition in the second given form, which is either J or W. Now that we have our result, we can match it with the conditional. Since the statement is if either one of them is true, then the result will also be true. We can use the rule of modus ponens on the first statement and the fourth statement. Therefore, the result will be S. And now, we conclude that we can achieve a decent living if there are more decent jobs in our country and if no one is paid below the minimum wage. Now that we are done with our second argument, let's move on to the third argument. The last argument is about SDG 13, or climate action. The argument for this one is, if we take urgent climate action and plant more trees, then we will reduce the effects of climate change. The first proposition is we take urgent climate action, or A. The second one is we plant more trees, or C. And the last proposition is we will reduce the effects of climate change, or C. For the logical given form, the first one is if both A and C is true, then C is true. If else, then false. The second one is A, and the third one is D. And now, what we need to prove is C. So, for proving, we need to observe first the conditionals and use the appropriate inferences. Since the logical form is that if both statements are true, then the result will also be true. If else, then the result will be false. Therefore, we will use the inference of conjunction. Now, we can satisfy this statement to the first conditional. The first statement is that both should be true so that the result will also be true. Therefore, we will use the inference of modus ponens. Since the rule of modus ponens is A and T implies C, A and T, therefore the outcome is C. And now, we have proved that we will reduce the effects of climate change if we take urgent climate action and plant more trees.
So that's all for today. Try this on your own or with your partner. So we have an argument about study and exam. If students study hard and attend classes regularly, then they will pass the exam. The students study hard, they also attend classes regularly. So identify first the propositions and then solve the given. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you. And once again, I am Aljam Castillo and with my partner Jasper Amarante. And have a good day.